That's really cool. Wow. Such love. Okay. The water kept rising, 8 feet all the way to the ceiling. All she could do was run. That's all Sudarshani, pictured here, can recall about the tsunami that destroyed her house. Anything else, and she'll have flashbacks. 7 years later, the wounds are still very fresh. In 2004, an earthquake off the coast of Sumatra triggered a tsunami that hit the small island nation of Sri Lanka. It inundated everything in its path, and no one saw it coming. 30,000 people were killed, 21,000 were injured, and 500,000 were displaced, though they'll never know the exact numbers. With the people that were killed, they counted the bodies, and many bodies were just swept out to sea. Sriani and Tom Tidball, who are a Lincoln couple who actually divide their time between here and Sri Lanka, were on the island when the tsunami occurred. Sriani was in church, and when they got word of the waves that had come, everyone filed out of the church. She immediately drove to her organization, the Community Concern Society, which services about 5,000 people who live in a beach, basically a beach slum near Colombo. These are some of the people who were at the relief camp. No one from her organization had died, but they all had stories. There was a woman who knew she had lost her son, and the only way she could totally grieve was to search for his body. And so she looked through piles of bodies, and ultimately the only way she could recognize him was through his shoes. The rushing water had made his face unrecognizable. Donations poured in, and they needed just the most basic things like gauze and mosquito nets and a coconut scraper, but they also wanted money to ultimately build apartment buildings. Many people had lost their homes, and Sri Lanka made a new law stating that you had to live a certain distance away from the water. So many people not only lost their homes, but they lost their area as well. Lincoln came together. Girl Scout Troop 178 raised $500 through Girl Scout cookies, and one person actually walked into Pinnacle Bank, wrote a $10,000 check, and walked out. They still don't know who that person is. Ultimately, Lincoln raised $100,000, or about 11 million rupees. That right there is a happy story. That's Sriani pictured right there. But I wanted to know more. I wanted to know where the money had gone and what had happened. So in May, I decided to go to Sri Lanka. That's me with a new friend. He was really nice. I named him Herbert. So back to Sudarshani. How are she and Lincoln connected? She lives in an apartment building built solely with funds donated by Lincoln residents. I was able to talk to her through a translator, and she told me about her life. She rises at 4 a.m. every single morning so that her son can study for his college entrance exam. He's 14. And I asked her what her dreams are. She looked out the window. She can still see the waves at her window. And she started crying. And she said she doesn't think about herself. She thinks about her sons. She has 3 of them. She said, the waves took away my house, but it's not going to take away my dreams for my children. I asked her what she knows about the people who donated money. And she said she knows that they're from Lincoln, though she doesn't really understand where Lincoln is or anything about Cornhusker football, anything like that. But she said she's grateful, and she thinks about Lincoln residents every single day. I was struck by the gratefulness and the resilience of the people that I met there. They all know about Lincoln, and they all think it's fascinating that people halfway around the world cared so much about them that they donated money. In Sri Lanka, similar to Afghanistan, charity is not really something that they think about. These are the apartment buildings. There are about 48 apartments that were built by Lincoln residents. The residents have to pay 100 rupees, which is about $1 per month for services, but they don't have to pay rent or anything like that. That's me again with 2 great ladies. And it's just amazing to see how grateful they were, even now. I met a man named Lanka who was about my age, 21, or a few years younger, or older, excuse me, and he is the only person from the community to go to college. He wants to work at a hotel. And I asked him what he thinks about Lincoln residents, and he said, oh my gosh, Lincoln is great. What is this place? Is it a big town? Is it little? Is it on the beach? Does it look like California? I said, not quite. But he said, wow, that's great. Please tell everyone in Lincoln that I love them. And then he asked me to marry him, and I said I'd think about it. And I said, oh, maybe, I don't know. But then he said, okay, that's fine. And he said, thank you, and ayubawan, which means thank you, good blessings, good journey. These are some of the other people within the society. I think this story should serve as an example of what can happen when a community comes together for good. Lincoln raised so much money for a community half a world away, and those people are still affected, and they still think about them every single day. If we can do that much for someone across the world, think about what we can do right here. Thank you.